A young pregnant woman was working slowly along the dusty road. She was exhausted, supporting her huge belly with one hand and carrying a heavy bag with the other. Sweat covered her face and rolled down in large drops. Her hair stuck to her neck. Mia had no more strength, but it was still a long way to Grandpa's house. She leaned against the fence of a house, breathing heavily as if she had just run a marathon. Suddenly, she heard an engine noise from behind, and an old car pulled up beside her. The car door opened, and the driver shouted, "Get in. I'll give you a ride." "Oh my goodness, you are pregnant. What are you doing outside? It's hot as hell." Now, the driver's name was Brian, and he was an elderly local farmer. Brian looked closely at the woman and suddenly slapped his forehead. "Mia, is that you? I didn't recognize you. Are you married? When did you have time to get pregnant? You left our village just a year ago. Have you decided to come back?" He was asking so many questions, but she felt so depressed that she didn't want to answer them. But she had to. "Hello, Brian. Yes, I've decided to come back home forever. I don't have a husband, but it's a long story. Can you drive me to my grandfather's house?" The man scratched the back of his head and asked, "How are you going to live there alone? Judging by your belly, you're going to have a baby pretty soon. The local women will gossip when they find out you're pregnant but not married." The woman sighed heavily. "I know, but I'll get over it somehow. I don't have anywhere else to go. It's okay. I'll get used to it." The man drove her home and waved, "Good luck, Mia. If you need any help, just let me know." Mia entered the house, dropped her suitcase in the hallway, sat on the sofa, and looked around. Everything was the same as when her dear grandfather was alive: a photo of her young grandparents on the wall, a horseshoe over the door, an old blanket on the sofa. The woman got very sad. Tears flowed from her eyes, and the memories of her youth and recent days began to flash before her eyes. Everything was mixed up. Mia's parents died a long time ago when she was only 8. They both worked on a farm. They were not rich, but they loved each other and were truly happy. The family had a good vegetable garden and a small farm, but a ridiculous and terrible tragedy took the lives of many people. There was a fire on the farm, and the fire was spreading rapidly, enveloping the frightened people on all sides. The chances of surviving were very low, so 8-year-old Mia became an orphan overnight. She was raised by her grandparents, who replaced both her father and mother. The girl missed her parents very much. She missed her mother's affection and love, and her father's care. The house became so empty. Grandmother couldn't withstand such grief and soon became very ill. A month later, she passed away. So, the girl was left with only one close and dear person, her beloved grandfather, Peter. He was strict, but he loved his granddaughter madly. He raised her as best he could, as if she were a boy. He taught her to use a hunting rifle, cut grass, sew, and chop wood. The girl was great at horseback riding and even knew how to hammer nails. Mia loved her grandfather and obeyed him, but still secretly dreamed of only one thing: to move to the city. That's what almost all young people did. Almost no one wanted to live in this remote village. Mia wanted to see how city life was. TV showed cozy, comfortable apartments, theaters, and fantastic skyscrapers. It attracted Mia so much. It seemed unbearable for her to live her whole life in the village. But when Mia asked her grandfather to let her go to the city right after the school prom, he got mad as hell. "What city? What are you going to do there? You need to study and get a profession. I'll find you a job in our village. If you don't want to work on the farm, you can be a cook at the local canteen. Isn't that good enough for you?" But Mia dreamed of a different future. "Please, let me go to the city. I'm not a child anymore. In the city, I can find a good job and a decent fiancé. I don't want to stay in the village. I want a normal life. Try to understand me." Peter was in despair. "What good job are you talking about? Nobody will need you in the city. Without education and work experience, you don't even know how to survive in the big city. Someone will trick you there one day. Where are you going to work? The only job they can offer country girls is some illegal job. Don't you realize that if your mother were alive, she'd take you out of it? But Mia disobeyed her grandfather and left, and even though he put some money in her pocket, he was very mad at her. He had raised her, loved her, cared for her, but she left. He had hoped that his granddaughter would stay in the village, help him, get married, and have children, and they would live in one big house. But things didn't work out the way he wanted them to. The city was like a huge anthill. No one paid any attention to anyone. Cars drove at a terrible speed, and stores attracted her with beautiful showcases. The girl felt like she was in another world and admired everything she saw. This life was not like life in her native village, where everyone knew everything about each other, where there was only one store for the whole village, and the only entertainment was a nightclub on weekends. The girl decided to settle in the city, not to disgrace her grandfather, and live a decent life. So she immediately rented a room on the outskirts of the city. The landlady, an elderly woman who lived in the next room, meticulously looked at the new tenant and strictly told her, "Don't bring boys here, don't make noise late at night, and be nice." Mia decided to make friends with the elderly lady and handed her a box of chocolates. "Don't worry, Mrs. Stevens. I was raised by my grandfather. He is very strict. He wouldn't even let me work late at night. So don't worry. I didn't come here to have fun, I came here to work." The elderly woman smiled sweetly. Soon, Mia started looking for a job, and that's where she faced problems. She didn't want to work as a waitress because she had to work both day and night shifts, but the landlady had made it clear to Mia that she shouldn't come home too late. After a long search, Mia got a job as a janitor in a small private company. The schedule was convenient. Mia naively believed that after a while, she would be promoted to a better position. Mia was given a nice uniform and started working. All the equipment was modern, and the work wasn't hard, as the floor in all the rooms was made of laminate and tile. The girl looked enviously at the young female employees of her age who talked about fitness clubs and expensive clothes. Mia dreamed that she would save up money and get a university degree too, so that in the future she could become one of those beautiful, successful girls. Mia had a very attractive appearance. She was a bright brunette with black eyebrows, long eyelashes, brown eyes, and a charming smile. She was very sociable, so she quickly made friends with her coworkers. The head of the procurement department, a young guy named John, paid special attention to Mia. He told her many nice words and explicitly hinted at a meeting, but Mia didn't like him at all. She didn't dare to refuse him openly, so she only joked about it. But the man was very angry and took her jokes as a personal offense. Tony, the head of the company, knew about it but didn't take it seriously. Tony had more serious problems. The income had recently begun to decrease, even though there was no obvious reason for it. John wasn't his friend, but they studied at the same university and often crossed paths. Their personalities were too different. Tony had a quiet and balanced life, while John liked to waste money in casinos and have fun with girls. However, John was smart and professional, so when he asked Tony for a job, Tony didn't hesitate to hire him. The current owner inherited this business from his father. A small company developing and selling software and computer equipment, they had a team of young and promising professionals who knew how to create a unique product. Just like his father, he loved this business, managed it properly, rewarded employees for creativity and new developments, and paid a decent salary. That's why he didn't understand why the company's income had become much lower over the last month. What was wrong? One day, Tony decided to throw a Christmas party for the staff. He chose a great restaurant and invited everyone. Mia was happy about such an event, but there was one disappointing thing: she had no suitable outfit. So, she had to spend a lot of money and buy a new dress. Maria's niece made her a beautiful hairstyle and gave her a pair of nice shoes. When Mia entered the restaurant, everyone was shocked. Colleagues were used to seeing Mia in her uniform, but now they were admiring the girl. Tony also could not take his eyes off her. John followed her the entire night. The girl refused John's attempts again, but agreed to a slow dance with Tony. Mia's heart was beating frantically with happiness because she liked Tony very much, but she had never dreamed of him. He was the owner of a successful company, while she was just a janitor. But now Tony was looking at her so intently. When everyone started to go home, Tony suddenly offered to give some employees a ride home. Several coworkers got into his car, and Mia was among them. Tony drove everyone home, and Mia was the last one in the car. She timidly said, "Thanks for the ride, Tony." The man walked around and opened the door, helped her out, and was in no hurry to let go of her hand. He suddenly said, "Dear Mia, after the dance with you, I still can't come to my senses. I'm crazy about you. I fell in love like a child. Tell me, do you like me? Do I have a chance?" Mia's throat instantly went dry. She wanted to shout loudly, "Yes, I've been dreaming about this since the day I met you," but she couldn't say a word. She just nodded silently and looked at him in such a way that everything became clear without words. They kissed passionately, without saying anything, and they were both insanely happy. From that day on, they began dating secretly. At work, they acted like boss and subordinate, but they spent every evening together. Of course, naive Mia believed that Tony was her one and only love, the man she had dreamed of since childhood. She immediately forgot all the instructions of her grandfather and enjoyed this love. However, soon rumors about their relationship began to spread. Many girls envied her and didn't understand why Tony liked her so much. She was just an ordinary, modest girl from the village. She didn't even have a higher education. Everyone realized that Tony was just having fun with her and would break up with her soon. John was angrier than anyone else. He hated this insolent girl who refused him and started dating Tony. He decided to take revenge on her. All these conversations didn't bother Mia and Tony. Mia was madly in love with Tony and expected to marry him soon. In the beginning, Tony didn't plan any serious relationship, he just wanted to have some fun. But he didn't notice how quickly he fell in love, and now he couldn't imagine his life without this shy country girl. She was special. She didn't demand anything from him but love, and they were really happy together. Tony didn't care that Mia was just a janitor. He decided that after the wedding, his wife would quit her job and take care of the house and the family. However, John was not happy about this plan and began to deliberately do everything to break up Tony and Mia. First, he slipped important papers into Mia's bag and caused a scandal, telling the security guard to check her bag. But Tony assumed it was just some misunderstanding. Why would Mia need those papers? What is she going to do with them? It's ridiculous. She doesn't even know anything about software engineering. So, John decided to take extreme measures. He met with Tony's father, the powerful businessman Edward. Edward was very surprised by John's visit. "Hello, John. What's wrong? I don't really supervise Mia's activities lately." John replied angrily, "It's too bad you don't supervise the things in the company anymore. We'll be bankrupt soon. Tony doesn't listen to me at all. It's getting worse every day. He is always spending time with our new janitor. He even wants to marry her. He doesn't care about business. Our income is critically low, and I don't even know what to do now. So, I decided to come to you. Maybe you can talk to him." The elderly businessman frowned. "What's going on over there? Give me all the details." Overjoyed, John immediately told Edward everything. He hoped Edward would force Tony to break up with Mia. After the conversation with John, Edward immediately went to the office and started arguing with his son. "Tony, have you lost your mind? Why would you need that janitor? Aren't there any normal girls? Stop this relationship and think about business. I've reviewed the reports. Our profits are almost zero. What's the matter?" Tony got angry. Don't you dare talk about Mia like that. She's wonderful. We're getting married soon, and she won't be working as a janitor anymore. She's going to be my wife. I hope she'll give you grandchildren soon. I know the company is in trouble, and I'm trying to sort it out. Don't worry, I'll handle it. Or don't you trust me anymore? No need to reprimand me like a child. I've grown up a long time ago, Dad, and I have a right to have my own opinion and my own personal life. Edward hoped his son would listen to his words, but it didn't happen. Mia and Tony were still together and started preparations for the wedding. Moreover, Mia was already pregnant. She moved into Tony's mansion and was no longer working as a janitor. Edward was mad and resentful. He thought this girl was dishonest. He was sure all she wanted was money. Edward could not let his only son tie his life to this beggar. John and Edward came up with a plan to separate the lovers forever. A cutting employee had secretly sold their company's developments to a competitor, and now they were really at risk of bankruptcy. All these troubles forced Tony and Mia to postpone their wedding preparations. But soon, another disaster struck. Mia got a call from a neighbor from the village who told her that her grandfather had passed away and she had to go to his funeral. The girl was hysterical because they had not seen each other since she had left for the city. She blamed herself for her grandfather's death. He was upset about her departure, so he didn't survive the grief. Tony gave Mia money for the funeral and paid for everything, but he couldn't come to the funeral because the problems in the company only worsened. After the funeral, Mia returned to the city depressed. She was absolutely indifferent to everything that was going on around her and was also suffering from terrible morning sickness. She thought Tony would be happy to have a baby, but when he found out there were going to be triplets, all joy was gone. Is this a joke? No one in our family has ever had triplets. I'm shocked. I don't even know whether to rejoice or cry at such news. This strange reaction of her fiancé scared the girl. She got nervous, and his feelings for her immediately vanished. Apparently, Tony had not expected such consequences. The situation in the company was getting worse every day. Edward was angry and soon appointed John as head of the company. All these troubles affected Tony's mental state. He became nervous and angry, and he and Mia began to quarrel all the time. He looked at the pregnant Mia with horror and could not imagine what he would do with 3 children. But that was not all the troubles that plagued Mia. John wasn't going to stop. He was going to get revenge on her. Mia consoled herself as best she could, trying to avoid conflicts, and hoped all these troubles were temporary. The most important thing was that she and Tony loved each other, so everything would be all right. That night, she was fussing in the kitchen, waiting for Tony to come home from work and cooking a delicious dinner. She was rubbing her huge belly and talking to the babies. Soon, my babies will be born, and then we will get married, because now your daddy has a lot of problems. If my grandfather were alive, he'd be insanely happy. He would love you all more than life, and I already love you, my cuties. Suddenly, Tony burst into the house, smelling of alcohol. He was furious. This had never happened before, and Mia got scared. Tony, what's wrong with you? Are you drunk? Is something wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Tony, you're scaring me. Tony suddenly threw a stack of photos in her face and shouted, "How long have you been cheating on me? I knew they weren't my babies. I knew it. You know, I had a serious illness when I was a kid. My dad says I'm not likely to have kids at all. Aren't you ashamed, Mia? I loved you so much. John told me you were cunning. I know you flirted with him too." Mia looked at the photos and didn't understand anything. In the photos, she was holding hands and kissing some stranger. She cried out desperately, "What the hell is that? It's not even me. You're my first man. I have no one else but you. Why don't you believe me? Look at me. I'm always at home. I don't know who the man in the photo is. Why don't you believe me?" She wanted to hug him, but he pushed her away roughly. "Get out of the house. You're disgusting. I don't want to see you. Mia was so hurt, she burst into tears and went to pack her belongings. But Tony didn't stop her, he just stayed in the kitchen, drinking cognac and waiting for her to leave. The girl hoped he would come to his senses, stop her, tell her how much he loved her, but he didn't even look at her. He was absolutely indifferent to her and their babies. How is that possible? This whole situation seemed like a nightmare to Mia. She was hurt and offended, and she decided to cut all ties with Tony and return to the village to start a new life. All the way to the village, she cried. Tears literally choked her, and it seemed that everything inside her was burning with resentment. Her beloved man had kicked her out of the house like an unwanted toy. She loved him so much, was faithful, and never cheated on him, but he just got rid of her. Only now, sitting on the sofa in her grandfather's house, did Mia realize the horror of her situation. How on earth would she survive on her own? She had no money, no supplies for the babies, no crib, no stroller, nothing. She looked at her grandfather's portrait and cried loudly. You warned me, Grandpa. I miss you so much. You tried to stop me from going to the city, but I didn't listen. Grandpa, I miss you so much. If you were alive, you would scold me, but you would help me, support me. Why did you pass away so soon? How am I supposed to live without you? She whispered all this out loud, as if in delirium, and tears poured from her eyes without stopping. She was in total despair and didn't know how to survive. Suddenly, Mia felt unwell and dizzy. She felt a sharp pain in her stomach, lay down on the couch, and cried out in pain. Panic seized her. Oh no, has it really started? What should I do? Where's my phone? I don't even know who to call. It'll take at least an hour for an ambulance to arrive. It hurts so bad, Mia shouted it all out loud, biting her lip, and then fainted. She soon regained consciousness. For a while, she saw someone's silhouette and heard a pleasant voice whispering to her, Don't be afraid. I will help you. I know how to deliver babies. Let me examine you, please, otherwise, I won't be able to help you. Mia mumbled, Who are you? How do you know what to do? I'm dying, right? Don't touch me. I won't let you kill my babies. Don't touch me. She resisted and screamed, but soon she felt so bad that she gave up. She vaguely remembered what happened next. It was like delirium, someone wiping her forehead, giving her some water, giving her clear commands, and even slapping her cheeks a couple of times when she was unconscious. Surprisingly, the woman obeyed the commands, and soon she heard the long-awaited cry of her babies. Mia woke up at the moment when the ambulance crew was leaning over her. Miss, can you hear me? It took us a long time to get here, it's a long way. Sorry. As we can see, everything has already happened. You've safely given birth to triplets on your own. It's a real miracle. You have 3 girls. The babies are fine, but you lost a lot of blood. But that's not surprising, the labor was difficult. We'll take you to the hospital now. The doctor will examine you and the babies. Tell me, who managed to deliver your babies so professionally? It's a real talent. It's not easy to deliver babies at home without any equipment or medication. I'd like to shake this hero's hand. Mia cradled the babies in her arms and whispered, I don't know. I don't remember anything. I had just arrived, and I didn't even have time to unpack my stuff yet. The contraction started so unexpectedly, and then I lost consciousness and didn't remember his face. I don't even understand how someone could enter my house. It's a mystery. But I'm very grateful to my savior. I would have died alone for sure. The paramedics were shocked. The babies were washed and wrapped in blankets. Mia was fine too. The paramedics were shocked at the hero who saved them. Mia was taken to the hospital. The doctor examined her and confirmed that everything was done very professionally. She only needed to stay in the hospital for a week to recover. Mia had been nervous all week. She didn't have enough milk. She rocked her daughters and cried with joy and grief at the same time. Her thoughts tormented her. How am I supposed to get from the hospital to the village alone? I won't be able to carry 3 babies alone. I'm so ashamed. I'm all alone. I don't have a husband. I can only imagine how the neighbors will look at me. Even social workers talked to the woman and hinted that she would not be able to raise 3 children alone. These women looked at her like she was crazy, with sympathy and squeamishness, but Mia was confident. I can cope. I have a house, a vegetable garden, everything will be fine. And don't look at me like that. Yes, I am a single mother, and yes, I have 3 babies, but I am not an alcoholic. I am a serious woman. I love my babies, and I won't give them to anyone. Do you understand? And don't come to me with such offers anymore. Out of desperation, Mia even wanted to call Tony and tell him that he was a father now, that he had 3 wonderful daughters, and Maria, and Hope. But she immediately scolded herself. Don't you dare. He abandoned you, kicked you out of the house. If he wanted to fix everything, he would have called you long ago. He doesn't need you. You have to forget him. The day of discharge from the hospital came. Representatives from the mayor's office visited Mia and gave her some baby stuff and a stroller for Triplets. Mia didn't dare to say that no one would pick her up from the hospital. It was so embarrassing. Mia timidly stepped out onto the porch and looked around, as if looking for someone. Suddenly, a stranger approached her, a short, funny man with red hair, wearing old clothes. He said to the nurse in a businesslike manner, I've come to pick up Mia. Give me the babies, sweetheart. Get in the cab, it's time to go home. He handed her a modest bouquet of roses. Mia didn't understand anything, but she was overjoyed. Now, no one looked at her with disdain, everyone sincerely congratulated them and wished happiness to the family. When they were in the cab, the woman asked, Thank you, but who are you? I don't know you. Why did you come to pick me up? Who told you to do this? Tony, the man shook his head. I don't know who Tony is. My name is Frank. I'm the one who delivered your babies. I'm sorry about that. The house had been empty for a long time, so I decided to move in. Then you arrived unexpectedly. I got scared and hid. When you went into labor, I had no time to explain anything. I had to save you. I'm glad everything went well. The woman felt embarrassed and began to thank him. So that's who my savior is. Thank you, Frank. Are you a doctor? Everyone at the hospital admired you and said it was done professionally. They even wanted to meet you. Why don't you work at the hospital? Frank sighed and began to tell his story. Now I'm homeless, but years ago, I was the only son in a wealthy family. My childhood was very happy. My parents loved me and never denied me anything. My father was happy that I became a doctor and worked in the ambulance team. I liked it very much. I knew that every day of my life was not in vain, and I saved at least one person. Then I met Elizabeth, who worked as a nurse in a hospital. I loved her with all my heart, and we were getting ready for the wedding. But suddenly, Elizabeth's spirits got sick, and my dad offered to drive her to their house. There was a snowstorm outside, and the road was slippery. That ride was fatal. My father lost control of the car and crashed into a pole. They died together in that accident. My mother could not survive this tragedy and died of a heart attack 3 months later. I was standing at the coffin and didn't realize what had happened. My brain refused to believe that Elizabeth and my parents were gone. The competitors took the opportunity and seized my company. I was desperate, so I started to drink a lot of alcohol. It was easier that way. It allowed me to relieve my mental suffering for at least a couple of hours and forget about my problems. I was fired from my job, and our house was taken away for debts. That's how I ended up homeless. I know I should have fought to the end, but I didn't see the point. I lost all my family. I hope you're not mad at me for picking you up from the hospital. I just felt so sorry for you. You're all alone, and there's no one around. It shouldn't be like that. And don't worry, I didn't steal anything from the house. Mia couldn't stand it and cried. She then told everything about herself, about her cruel fiancé, and how he had kicked her out of the house. At the end, she added, "You know, Frank, I'm very grateful to you for everything. I'd be happy if you stayed and lived in my house as long as you want. Honestly, I'm so scared to be alone with 3 babies." So, Frank stayed in Mia's house. The man desperately wanted to help this brave woman who took the risk of raising 3 children on her own. The neighbors judged Mia, but the local policeman was happy. He had known Mia since she was a child, but this was the first time he'd seen Frank. He checked the man's ID, asked him many questions, and then even offered him a job at a local hospital. The man gladly agreed. He wanted to support Mia and her babies, and he was very happy that he got a chance to earn money. Every evening, Frank was doing something in the barn, but Mia was so exhausted with housework and taking care of the babies that she had no time to check what exactly he was doing. One day, the man brought in 3 adorable cribs. Mia was thrilled. "Did you make these yourself? So cool." "I'm thrilled. Your future wife will be very lucky to have such a hard-working husband." The man blushed. He was pleased with her warm words and suddenly replied, "You know, Mia, after Elizabeth's death, my life seemed to stop. But now I have you and your babies, and I am very happy about it. Let me always be by your side and help you. For me, it is the best reward. You are the meaning of my life." Frank turned out to be a truly amazing person. He helped all his neighbors, treated them, and gave them valuable advice about health. Mia's neighbor often helped her with the babies so that Mia could at least get some sleep or cook something. Frank took care of the household chores. It seemed as if the man was never tired. All these chores were a joy to him. The babies were growing up and could already smile. They were not rich, but they lived happily, in peace, and in love. 6 months passed. One day, when the family was having dinner, someone knocked on the door. Mia put on her jacket and went to open the door. She saw Tony on the doorstep. He said quietly, "I could barely find you. Can I come in? We need to talk." The woman was shaking with anger. She wanted to kick him out, but the remnants of her past love forced her to let the man into the house. Frank looked at the uninvited guest in shock. The kids, sensing that there was a stranger in the house, started crying. Frank immediately began to entertain and comfort them, taking them in his arms and kissing them. Mia looked intently at Tony and asked rudely, "What do you want? Do you feel guilty or something? I'll never believe it." Tony didn't expect such a negative reaction. He thought Mia would be happy that he came. He timidly began, "Sweetheart, I came to apologize. I made a big mistake. Back then, I saw those stupid pictures and kicked you out of the house. Everyone told me you were sneaky, that all you wanted was my money, and that you cheated on me. I was in despair and I believed them. Only a month ago, right before he died, my father confessed to me that those photos were not real, that he and John decided to break you and me up. John took the business away from me. My father's savings would be enough for a long time, but you know, I realized the most important thing: I only need you and our children. No one could ever replace you. I only love you. Mia, come back to me, please." The woman was shocked at such words. She was shocked by Tony's insolence. "What are you talking about? You kicked me out when I was in my last month of pregnancy. You didn't even think about the fact that I had absolutely nowhere to go. What kind of love are you talking about? This man, who happened to be around, saved me. If it wasn't for him, me and the kids would have died. Do you realize it? His name is Frank, and unlike you, he's a real man. Love is not about sweet words and bouquets of flowers, Tony. Love is about caring and trust. But I don't trust you anymore, Tony. I don't trust you, and I don't love you anymore. I will never forgive you. Go away." Suddenly, Frank intervened. "So you, Tony, Mia's ex-fiancé and the father of her children? What an amazing meeting. Don't you recognize me? It was your father who stole my father's company. What a nice family. The father decided to make a profit out of people's grief, and his son kicked the woman he loved out on the street. I'm not surprised. Christ, it seems you inherited not only business from your father but also cruelty. Tony turned pale but decided to say one last thing. Mia, what about our children? Are they going to grow up without a father? We're almost a family. Have you forgotten how happy we were together? He was about to walk over to the crib where the quiet girls were sitting, but Mia suddenly started pushing Tony toward the exit. Don't you dare approach the children. You didn't want to know they existed. You didn't care about them for half a year. Get out. My girls have the best father. He loves them and cares for them, not like you. You're pathetic. Tony ran out of the house. He remembered how he had kicked Mia out and how she had cried and begged him to come to his senses, but he had only insulted her. He felt so ashamed right now. He had lost everything, and it was his own fault. He believed everyone except his own heart, and now, what? What was he left with? No business, no family, and these cute little girls who looked like his beloved woman calling another man daddy. The man got in the car, wrapped his arms around his head, and screamed, "What an idiot I am. I don't even know my daughter's names. For Mia, no one has ever loved me or cared for me like she did. I must atone for my sins. I lost Mia. I can see that she doesn't love me anymore and I can't change that, but I must do something for my children." After Tony left, Mia lost control of her emotions and cried, but now they were tears of relief. With each tear, her resentment and hatred for Tony went away. She had finally said all the things she had wanted to say to him for so long, and it made her feel so much better. Frank walked over and hugged her gently. Are you sorry he left? Do you still like him? Tell me the truth, please. I need to understand. Who am I to you, a friend? You said such nice things about me to your ex-boyfriend. Do you really think so? You know, I didn't even expect that I could be so jealous. Yes, Mia, I am jealous, and I'm terrified that you might go back to Tony. I mean, you have kids together. So, you better tell me the truth right away. Mia looked Frank in the eye and said, Frank, I was telling the truth. You are the most important man in my life, and I don't need anyone else. You know, I was so angry when I saw Tony, when he wanted to approach the kids. On one hand, I feel sorry for him. He wasn't always like that. We loved each other, but the way he treated me and our babies showed me that I was wrong about him. If Tony really loved me, he would never have done that. I don't need his money, it's not what makes me happy. I have so much more now, a man I love and a strong and friendly family. Only now have I learned what true happiness and love are. Frank was almost crying. He hugged Mia even tighter and whispered, Thank you for believing in me, for loving a poor, homeless man. I promise that I will do my best to make sure that you and my girls have a prosperous life, and I want everything to be real between us. Let's become real husband and wife. Soon, they got married. The day after the wedding, a mailman knocked on Mia's door. Mia, there's a letter for you. The woman began to read aloud. My dear Mia, I'm a scoundrel, and there's no forgiveness for me, and I deserve it all. That's why I've decided to leave the country. I guess I'm running away from myself. I don't know. Anyway, I will try to start a new life and become a better person. I've been thinking about our relationship for a long time, berating myself for cowardice and meanness, and I really wish I could go back in time and fix my mistakes. I wish I could look again into your happy eyes and at your smile, so naive and so sincere. But alas, this is impossible. I saw the way you looked at Frank with the same tenderness and love as you once looked at me. I sincerely wish you happiness, and I won't get in the way. It so happened that I don't even know my daughter's names. I will never forgive myself for it, but I'm sure Frank will be a good father to them. I'm sure he'll make you happy. But before I say goodbye forever, I want to do something good for my kids. So here is my gift to them. There is a safe deposit box in the bank in your name. I know you are mad at me and you don't want anything from me, but I'm asking you to accept this gift for the sake of our children. Goodbye. I still love you. Then Mia cried again, realizing that now, at this very moment, Tony had let her go, and she had let him go too. Their story was finally over. The next day, Mia and Frank went to the bank and received the contents of the safe deposit box, 3 gold chains and a bundle of money. Frank said thoughtfully, "A noble deed. It's worthy of respect. Let's put these chains on the girls. They have a right to know who their father was, and we don't really need his money. What are we supposed to do with it?" Mia thought for a moment and then answered, "Let's open a savings account for the girls. When they grow up, they'll get a gift from their father. They'll need it." They did that and left the bank with a sigh of relief. Mia finally let Tony go and even wished him happiness.